Hi, I am recording this because I have had a couple of my friends over the last couple months ask me how I do certain things in my art. And I've been meaning to do that, but every time I was in the middle of a new drawing or something, I would forget until like midway through the drawing, uh, and then I didn't feel like starting something else. This was originally going to be a speed paint, but I I just figured that maybe doing something more concise might be helpful. Concise and narrated might be better off, and also because I kept forgetting. Um, First things first, I wanted to say a couple disclaimers. Uh, not This is not all representative of all of my art. This specifically is going to be touching upon the full bodies I've been doing fairly recently, um, with like the specific brush and all that. I do a lot of different things for all of my art. Uh, I do Everything is different. Everything is changing. I don't really have a set way of doing every single thing I draw. This is more of a set way, but it's just like how I figured out how to do it. And two, I am a mouse user, and I use Paint Tool Sci too. I use an older version of that, so I don't know how all like how it will translate if you use a tablet or if you use a different program. I feel like I have a highly specific way of doing certain things, um, to like make up for the fact that I don't use a tablet, and also just in general. Um, and I've been using my mouse since 2014, so it's just kind of ingrained in how I draw. So just keep in mind that like it's probably not gonna look the same as whatever you're trying to do. Um, I don't know how much that matters, but I thought I would state it. And also, I use pretty high stabilization just because I have really bad shaky hands, and it's not necessarily fun for me to try to draw with that with a mouse. I have that same problem with my tablet, where I've had to turn up the stabilization on all of my brushes just because my hands don't work as well as they should. So that's just keep that in mind when you're watching, or wanting to like if you're wanting to pick up anything from this. Um, Second thing, what I'm going to be talking about is one, some inspirations I have. Nobody asked for that, but I feel like it gives context into how I draw and um, what like makes me do what I do. The second thing will be how I do shapes. I don't really know how to describe that in a way that like makes a whole lot of sense, but I'll try. I've had at least like two people ask me about that, so I'll try my best. And three will be just a general art process, like I said, for those specific full bodies that I've been doing. Um, just so I guess you have a reference. Um, Thank you to people who asked me to do this. I'm flattered. I think I struggle with the same thing that a lot of artists do, where I just don't feel like my work is all that impressive or impactful. So I appreciate that. It means a lot. So to start, um, some inspirations I have tons. It really depends on the day or what I'm trying to do. Lately, I've been into more shape kind of things. Um, I guess a good example is this drawing I did on Inkscape, which is a whole separate program, but the shape it's simple, it's shapely. I don't know how to paint like other people. I don't know how to shade or do anything super rendered. Um, I've been trying to learn, but it just hasn't clicked in my brain. So a lot of my artwork is just simple. So if you're looking for that, I don't know how to help with that. I'm sorry, but I've been doing stuff like this lately. I did this on Inkscape. It's different than Sai, obviously, um, but it's the same principle of like how I use shapes and stuff. Um, Specifically, an inspiration for this that comes off the top of my mind is Winslow Rojas. Sorry if I butchered that. Um, they do a lot of shapely stuff like this, and that's been the main inspiration for like this kind of artwork. But I genuinely have tons. A lot of people, my friends, are my inspirations. I guess a couple off the top of my head are probably um, Onionish, Memories of Green, Dazzleoids, Death of Glitter, um, genuinely just a ton. As the couple that come up to my mind immediately, but most of my friends are a pretty big driving factor in why I draw and like what inspires me. So I guess I can see some of their stuff in mine. Um, so I guess like I just remember that all art is derivative. Nothing is original. Everybody's inspired by something. Uh, this is kind of a tangent, but I don't believe in like idea theft, color picking theft, whatever, and it doesn't matter to me. I take a lot of inspiration from many different places, especially music and other people. So, um, I guess if you want to try to do something like this, I don't know how much it will impact, but that's just where my frame of mind was when I was doing this. Um, so for my shapes, I don't know how to explain this in a way that makes coherent sense. It's just something that comes naturally with my mind, um, and just how I've evolved over the years to draw. I guess the main advice I can give, or like how to explain it, is off um, like I build off with like a lot of shapes when I'm doing my sketches. There was a long time that I actually didn't do any sketches at all, and I can specifically point out the time frame in which that was. Yeah, I feel like you can tell. There's nothing wrong with not sketching, but I've noticed it has helped me in my processes. So basically, I'll just do shapes, and then I'll like build off of those. Um, Here's like a animal body, I guess. The neck and the head, and then the torso and the bottom half, and then the the legs. Uh, this is very rough. Normally, I move it around and I refine it a lot, but here's just like a basic way I can quickly make something. Um, I don't I don't really tend to make my animals stand in like a flat plane. I've been told that I the way I draw uh, poses and stuff is kind of like fueled by like has some perspective to it. I don't know if that reads here, but uh, that's what I've been told. This is just a really quick sketch. That's basically how I start my sketches, and then I'll go in and I'll refine them and add bits and bobs and stuff and whatever, I don't care. Um, for the longest time, the only thing I knew how to do in Sai was rotating and resizing. But I think back in December, I discovered how to deform stuff, which I I don't know how I didn't see that in Sai for like the last 2 or 3 years I've been using it, but that helps. That has helped a lot with like making my shapes far more dramatic or angled or whatever, which is nice. Like I like this. Um, a specific example that I can think of is I don't think I have it on my thing on my file viewer right now. Um, Let me see. I guess I don't have it up right now. I don't really feel like pulling it up, but um, I drew something of my character called Phantasmagoria, and I deformed it a lot. and it made it look drastically more interesting, I think. So the deform tool is your friend if you want to mess around with your sketches. But even for like a 5 second sketch, I think this is pretty decent. I like it. But yes, like I said, I'll go in and I'll adjust a lot. Because I use a mouse and because I'm really a perfectionist, a lot of my art takes upwards of like 2 to 3 hours per piece, which isn't very productive, but I'm a hobbyist. I'm not doing this um, as a freelancer. I don't really want to do commissions or be a freelancer, but it's just like the position I put myself in. So I'm slow, but I feel like the result turns out pretty well. I guess what I can say is that I value shape language and I value silhouettes. I feel like that shows in my art. I taught myself ever since I was a kid how to do a lot of this. I really don't know a lot of like traditional art techniques. I don't know a lot of words. I don't know a lot of anything. Um, so I apologize if I use anything wrong or incorrect here. But yeah, I just like to focus on those kinds of things. Um, I don't really know how else to explain my shapes. If I'm doing something like this, that's a whole nother ball game. I look at like a lot of like simple simple minimalistic, I guess, kinds of photos. Um, I don't know. It's just, it really depends on what I'm trying to do, but I really like having my things be shapely and like more cartoonish than realistic and stuff. So hopefully that helps in explaining uh, my my process. And also, uh, I get a lot of inspiration from like older art. Like think of like not specifically warrior cats, but like old MS Paint warrior cat art, old DeviantArt furry art from like 2012, 2011, 2010. I get a lot of inspiration from that, and I think that also shows in how I stylize certain things. But it's just like my art is a mismatch of everything I've ever looked at. So I'm sure you could. I'm sure that like whoever's watching this, you can identify like where the sources of like where your stuff came from. But that's just mine. I like to do. I also like to do like more creepier styles, or more simple styles, or just like regular anime cat styles. So I'm not really a realistic artist. I'm not really interested in realism. So I don't know techniques for that, and it's not really relevant to my process. But I think that's all I have to say on how I do shapes. Sorry if that wasn't the best explanation. I don't really know how else to get the point across or like you know teach on how I do it. It just kind of comes naturally. I think it also has to do with my mouse, and being that like each individual stroke is like a click or a long held click, so it's really easy to like go really quick and fast and rapid like that rather than like a slow burn stuff like that, especially when I'm using a mouse or a stabilizer. Um, so I guess that kind of adds to it. But like here you go. It's a general cat drawing of some sort. I don't know. Um, but as for the art process for the full bodies, in which I referenced earlier, I'll pull up. I have a drawing pulled up that I was doing last night, so I could have a very recent example of my art where I'm doing that process. I actually started this when I was watching something with my girlfriend. Um, I'll hide the layers just to show like what I'm talking about and how I start the process. So I started this out. This is my character Poilu. They're a closed species character. I draw a lot of those just because I'm interested in it. Um, but I was redoing their riff again because I was pretty unhappy with how this last one looks. So basically, I just did the same thing that I was explaining earlier. Um, I started off with a lot of shapes and then built up from that. I specifically remember doing like this and then like that and then just editing it like along the process. For this drawing, I specifically started with the face first and then built off of that. I do that a lot because the face is one of the most important details in these kinds of drawings that I do, specifically because this is a reference. I pay a lot of attention to the face because that's the most important part to me. So I sketched it and then I refined it and then I resized it because a lot of the time I end up starting on my sketches end up being really small. I use 2000 by 2000 and they end up being really small, so I resized them to be about this size. Any higher and then the texture of the brush is lost and it just doesn't look as good. Example of that is this drawing I did. This drawing I accidentally made really super huge, and I don't think it looks as good when it's bigger. Like the texture just gets more, it just loses a lot of the interesting feeling it has when it's smaller to me. So yeah, I'm not really happy with this. I'll probably redo it, but that's it, besides the point. So I resize it, and then after that's done, I turn it to a lower opacity, typically around like this range, or this range, depending. And then what I do from there is I build up building blocks of the drawing. Like, I'll, for the longest time, I only ever did like, I guess lasso tool, which because Side doesn't have, or at least the version that I'm using doesn't have it, I would just build up from this and then add another section and then just like go to fill, and I do that every time that I want to do this. But lately, I've noticed with this that I have a harder time controlling the shapes and what they look like, because for one, it's the select tool and also high stabilization for my hands. So I would end up having to clear a lot of it off like that to make it sharper or softer or whatever. So lately I've been in the process of, instead of that, going and just tracing the area underneath my line art, like this. And then once I have a suitable way in which I like it, I'll zoom in really close and then I will just color it in like that. Because I'm a perfectionist, it's or have tendencies. I don't like to use the fill bucket because it looks ugly, and I don't like to use the selection tools because it looks ugly. So it ends up adding a lot of extra time, but I feel like the result is pretty worth it. You still get that lineless look, but you have like a little bit of texture and stuff. So I feel like that is helpful. And then basically I just keep doing that, and then everything is in a separate layer. I use building blocks, and then like there's certain things that I always do. Like when I'm doing like a reference kind of drawing, I always put this front leg atop everything else as its own layer, and then the two back legs are both their own layer, and then this leg is attached to the main body. The reason I do that with the legs, especially the front leg, is because it gives me more control of how it's going to look colored, and also if I need to do edits on the front leg, I don't have to fuck with the body, because that is annoying. So like just everything is its own piece. And then lately, as of late, I forgot to mention, I've been flipping it, which a lot of people tell you to do. I didn't really do that for many years, and I feel like you can tell when you're looking at my old art. It honestly does help a little bit, just because, like, I don't know, I like to make sure it looks decent via both ways, so I've been flipping it more, and I make edits as needed. Specifically, when I'm redoing old pieces, I like to redo a lot of old pieces because I get really unhappy with them easily. I think it's a compulsive thing, um, but just flipping a toothpick changes everything. So, and then once I have all of the building blocks, I use a lot of different colors as like base colors, because I work on a primarily gray or black background. Um, Sorry, wrong file. There we go. Since I use since I work on a darker background, I try to use like darker colors, but colors that stand out, so I know what I'm looking for. Um, and then I basically just use clipping layers to color everything in. It's pretty simple once you get into it. Very I When I used to do these, I used to make everything lineless. Like I wouldn't add any lines unless they were like guiding lines, like these ones, just to make things stand out. That's the trouble with this style, is that when I'm trying to draw a character that has like a lot of similarly colored areas, I use a lot of these guiding or like distinguishing lines. Um, it's kind of a pain in the ass, and sometimes I think it looks really ugly, but I just I don't really want to line the entire hair because then to me it throws everything off. So I mostly keep everything unlined, and then I'll only line the areas that are really important, like the face and the eyes and the nose. I will do that as needed, um, but mostly the face and the facial features are the only things that I line, other than the like accessories that the character or whatever may have. Um, and then once I'm done and I've gotten everything colored in with my clipping layers, I just I turn the background transparent and then I export it. Um, it's honestly a fairly simple process on its own. Like, I guess I try to be mindful of like how big the canvas is, because again, like if you resize it, the brush ends up looking different based on how big the thing you're drawing is, if that makes sense. So I just try to keep it like midway, because it's not too big and it's not too small, and you can still read details and still have it look decent. So um, yeah, it's a fairly simple process, I guess. There's not really much to it. I don't shade references, and I don't try to use any painted markings, because again, it's not fun for me. I've noticed over the years that I have more enjoyment, and I find it more fun to draw characters who are very simple rather than extremely complex. Especially because my art takes so long already. This took me at least 2 hours to at least get to this point. So I I prefer simple. I don't think that my art is ever going to be, or at least not for a while, ever going to focus on like painting or being complex. Again, that's why I like to use like the Inkscape and stuff. It's just I work better with simple, cartoony, or sometimes like creepy things. So that is basically my uh, my main general art progress and how I do things. Um, I feel like I was gonna say more here. I'm trying to remember. I think I covered everything that I needed to. Um, like I said earlier, all my art ends up being different. Nothing is the same. Nothing. I do a lot of things differently depending on programs. I don't use my tablet often because I grew up with a mouse. It's not comfortable. I've been trying to get into it more recently, but like my mouse doesn't cause me any pain. I've been able to work with the programs I have worked with for in a good way, in a manner that means a lot to me. So, and also just works for me as an individual. So, everybody's art journey is different. I'm sure you could try the way that I draw if you wanted to with a tablet, but I don't know how successful or how fun that will be, because again, I adjusted everything to be more fitting of how I draw. Um, and like I said, the deform tool is your friend. This is the drawing I was talking about earlier with my character, where I used it a lot. It will help out making your things more exaggerated, I've noticed. Um, it's fun, and I like to use it, and I try to not, it's hard not to, but I try not to be so perfectionist and, I don't know, critical of myself when I'm drawing. You have to enjoy how you draw and like what you like to draw. Um, my main program is Sai. Sometimes I use a tablet. I get a lot of inspirations from my friends, and I try to do everything different. So I guess if you take anything from this, it's just experiment. Try things you're not familiar with. Try drawing with a mouse. Try drawing with a tablet. Try drawing elsewhere. I don't know. Just mix it up. Sometimes art isn't as fun when you don't live a little with it. And also drawing with shapes is very fun. Using guiding shapes in your sketches, using exaggerated shapes and stuff is always fun, and makes it more, I don't know, it's just like an interesting change of pace. But yeah, um, if you have any, if whoever's watching this, if you have any other requests or want to know how I did a specific piece, I guess just ask and I can try to film whatever. I try to mix up how I draw, so everything's just kind of different. I can explain whatever is needed. Um, and I guess I think I mentioned this, but also I get a lot of my inspiration from music. So um, if you're ever in the mood, just try to look up music and draw while listening to music. It helps a lot. Oh, and one final thing I forgot to mention. With this kind of art that I do, it always ends up having like a million layers. I never usually name them unless it's something that's hard to spot from a thumbnail on the side here. Um, everybody's different. I don't really mind having a million layers. Um, it just kind of adds to the process. So everybody's different. I hope this was somewhat informational and interesting. Um, I like my little chuddy. I'll probably finish this right after I finish recording this. So hopefully that helps a lot. If I have for final notes, mix up how you draw. Nothing is fun when it's the same. Try out different inspirations. Music, games, other characters, just I don't know, just try anything. Anything is fun. Exaggerate. Sorry, I forgot how to spell. Whatever. Exaggerated shapes. Try messing with those. Just try short, quick shapes. I don't know. It gets to be quite fun. I'm not gonna add that one because I don't remember how to spell that. And then the deform tool is your friend. I found a lot of personal success with it. I recommend it if you just, I don't know, if you want to try out things rather than just like going boom 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 with a regular sketch without any editing. But there you are. Thank you for watching.